Good evening, everyone. I'm Gilly Robick, and on behalf of the Red Door Poets, I'd like to welcome you all, and it's lovely to see you here. First of all, a couple of housekeeping things. Please keep your mics on mute until we can all applaud at the end. Do put in the chat where you're joining from and any comments you have during the interview. Also, if you have any questions for Rachel, please put them in as well so Tamsin can put them to her at the end. And do sign up for the Royal, the Red Door Poets news and join us on Facebook. The link will be in the chat. And for anyone who's in London on the 14th of July, we'll be holding our summer party live at the CAA in Covent Garden, Bedford Street, with featured poets Hannah Lowe and Nassim Lukshai. Open mic, I hope I pronounced that correctly, open mic slots. A few. The event is free, but please register with Eventbrite, details in the chat, and there are limited places, so hurry along. The next online RDP reading will be at the end of August. Anyway, so now back to this evening, when we have the lovely Rachel Long, who will be interviewed by Tamsin Hopkins. Tamsin writes both fiction and poetry. She has an MA in creative writing from Royal Holloway, London. She's a previous winner of the Aesthetica Prize for Poetry, and her pamphlet, Once We Get Past Poker Night, won the 2023-24 Live Canon Pamphlet Competition. She hosts Exiled Writers, Inc. Poetry Group, and is poet in residence for Pens of the Earth. And over to you, Tamsin. Thank you.
Thanks, Gilly. It is such a pleasure to see you all here tonight and to welcome a long-time friend and poet, Rachel Long. So I first met Rachel in the poetry school when we were, all in classes with Catherine Maris. Her career has rocketed and well deserved as it is. So I'm so delighted to be able to talk to her tonight with Red Doors. She's got her lovely new book, her second book, Sparrow on the Rooftop, and just been launched, and we're going to be talking about that. But if you unmute Rachel, let's get going. And I'd like to ask you what you've been up to between the two books, what we've been doing.
What have we doing? Hi, Tamsin. Hi, everyone. It's really, really, really gorgeous to be here. So many of you. How gorgeous on a Sunday. I don't usually do anything on a Sunday, and this is happening. What have I been doing between books? So My Darling from the Lions came out in August 2020. So it was, almost exactly 6 years between. I was mostly going out of my mind and doing a PhD. The PhD was supposed to be 3 years. I took 4 to do it. I had a write-up year because the project changed significantly. And that significant change came out as the new collection, Sparrow on the Rooftop.
We're delighted to see it because it's brilliant. But am I right in saying that you tried the thematic concerns of the book in different forms, for example, as a novel first, and then switched to it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, my original PhD proposal, which is at King's College London, and my supervisor was Sarah Howe, who's now my editor at Chatto. And the proposal that I first went to them with was to research a project about poet daughters and the way in which they write the father figures in their work. So looking specifically at Sharon Olds, Salima Hill, and Warsan Shireh. I personally have a very soft, very gentle, sometimes a little bit too weak for my mother kind of father. And I was really interested in what that would be to contribute a father like that what is that to write against all the others, and to investigate actually if there are any other gentle father examples. If you can think of any, please do put it in the chat, because I still might go back to that project in some way, maybe. Um, so that's the project that I proposed to them. They were like, "Yep, this sounds halfway interesting. Please come and do the PhD," which I was really, really happy about. And so that was a poetry collection. That was a three-part poetry collection. And then I had a really bad breakup. Actually, the breakup wasn't even that bad. It was just like quite a normal, like uneventful breakup, but it led to a really bad breakdown. That's the order, actually. It was a pretty normal breakup, really bad fallout. And then the project changed in that I couldn't write the original like book. I just wasn't interested really anymore. I didn't want to write for a really long time. And then when I could or did, I wanted to sort of write the space in between to sort of understand the place I felt I was in. And it sort of burst the banks of the poem a little bit. I was trying to make a lot of, or trying to make some sense of what I was going through. So when I say breakdown, it's like like an eating disorder, like really bad depression. They're really interlinked. And then I started sort of, yeah, I just needed to write that experience. And in a poem, even though I feel like you don't have to know in a poem, like it's a space of sort of not knowing. I still felt like the amount that I kind of was sort of feeling and experiencing, it felt like it burst the banks, like the poem was too neat for it. Every time I sort of wrestled it into a poem, it wouldn't work. And so I was I was writing, it sort of became a novel in fragments that would sort of oscillate, I don't think that's the word. It would move between poems when I kind of did feel like something I could find a moment in it and it felt crystallized, or sections of prose but sort of fragmented and like a non-linear narrative as well. It didn't quite work. I finished it, but it took ages to finish, hence the 4 years instead of 3 years PhD, because I couldn't find an ending for it. I really didn't want a sort of neat ending. I was still sort of experiencing at the time. I was maybe sort of gradually coming out of like the worst of it, but I didn't know that at the time. And so it was really difficult for me to write an ending. Like, of course, we're all creative, we can make one up, but I also wanted something that felt sort of emotionally true. It didn't have to be factually true, but I wanted it to be emotionally true. And yeah, I couldn't work it out for a really long time. And a novel needs an ending. You can
Yeah.
only do the art house ending, just like to black. You can't do that. Like a reader would be really unsatisfied. And
Yeah.
it changed back into poetry because you can do that in poetry.
That makes absolute sense.
Oh, thank you,
And
Tam.
no, brilliant. But
I feel like I'm
I
gonna have
also
to
like
read
the
the poem.
sound of the novel. I'm kind of really sad that that novel didn't come out. I heard you at your launch, which was amazing, by the way, talking about this process, this horrible process, or it like sounded so difficult that you set yourself when you decided to write about this, all the turmoil, emotional turmoil that you were
Mm.
having, that you were both at the same time the camera and the writer.
Love it,
And that doing it without hindsight, doing it as it's unfolding, and then publishing a book out of that. I mean, we've all journaled, but that's not what it is. Can you talk a little bit about that, because you pull off the
Mm.
most extraordinary feat there?
Tamsin, thank you. I mean, yeah, they all written like at the time that I was going through it. Um, that's not to say that there wasn't an extensive editing process after.
No, no, of course.
And Sarah Howe is such a brilliant editor. Um, she's a really great editor, and she found ways in which the collection could sort of open up into certain sort of portals, and also sort of each poem inform the other without leaning on the other. but maybe we can talk about like portals in a little bit. But um, I I think again, like with like emotional honesty, I think I felt that that was the only way I could do it because I felt like I had to do it. If anything, it probably sort of helped quite a lot actually. It also sort of messed me up also because you're sort of living it and then writing it, and then in some way trying to edit it. But it did help me understand the experience a little better. I don't know, I suppose it's like making a documentary, but instead of film, you're writing it.
You're right, yeah. Well, I think people would like to hear a little bit of what we're talking about now. So if you could read the first three poems that we've got on our list, because I
Mm.
want to jump to the next one separately. So if you could read those, that would be really kind, Rachel. So this is from Sparrow on the Rooftop, Rachel's new book.
Thank you, Tamsin. So it begins the book. The first poem I'll read acts as that sort of the preface for the collection. It's called That Year. That year you drank like a Tudor child, not beer, but wine, like water was dirty, your poor liver crying out for mercy, an inflamed claw on the cracked tile bathroom floor of your body, which you hated more and more as the year wore into the next, till your skin no longer fit and you refused to go out anymore. The shame of saying hello to a cashier who knew you from before. What was out there anyway? More of the same. You were bored of everything, everyone. That year got worse. Your one pleasure was feeding the dog, then yourself. Drink, dry, drink, starve, binge, purge, till your throat refused and you were left with a bin bag bulging, then rotting inside you. The bloat accumulated like night does, slow at first, then. Here you are, doubled, two bitches on the sofa, whining, barking for more. What? What? Something, anything from the hand of the dark. There is like a sort of love story, kind of a fucked up love story, at the beginning of it, at least. High summer. At first, you eat less because you're happy, so freaking happy, the way you are in high summer when you just can't because of the sun. You may sup an ice lolly, reach for water occasionally, but remain laying spread on a towel on the sand or in the long, dry grass. Under your sun hat, you wonder about picking up some salad bits later, but don't dwell on the particulars, don't care much because you're already so hot, so here. That's what it was in the beginning, wasn't it? Why you stopped eating this time, maybe. He was a new sun, the highest summer, though you met him in winter. He was such a bright thing to lay with, under. As if you miss his hands on you, his mouth. Earlier, you missed him in the honey aisle, and you haven't even been grocery shopping together yet. But you want to be on point in the kitchen, open the highest cupboard, set the things he likes inside. White bread, long life cow's milk. You even bought instant coffee and refrained from informing the cashier that it wasn't for you, woman of refined taste. Who are you kidding? You'd buy a sack of rice and lug it back on your head. You don't even hate admitting this. You've forgotten what you once did before you glowed in search of slippers. If he doesn't like his feet touching your floor, they don't have to anymore.
Thank you, Rachel. They're just amazing poems. Can I ask you a little bit about specifically about the last one? I mean, they're all fantastic, but in As If, for me, you've got these incredible images that each one is a story. the girl on point reaching into the thing, trying to look attractive as she's doing her domestic servitude. I mean, it's brilliant. It's like, who hasn't done that? Not quite, but hey.
Mhm.
And the and the slippers and the carrying the rice on the head. Each one is this the portholes you're talking about? What is the portholes you're talking about?
More isn't like what how the collection eventually got put together because I then started maybe because it even though I tried to write the novel in a non-linear way, it was still pretty linear just because it was a novel basically. So the collection still happened in the order that things happened in. So you meet him, the breakup, the breakdown, basically that's how it and then a slight there's some slight hope. Not much. It's a little bit, not like a sick, like sort of sentimental
Okay,
or yeah, a tiny bit. Um so that was the trajectory of it. And I mean it still is, that still is, I suppose, the arc of the collection. But Sarah Howe encouraged me to sort of so there were still some poems about sort of I suppose that take place in childhood
mm,
that are sort of glimpses into reasons maybe why without sort of explaining like oh and then you might have this might have happened because but another poem might give some clue as to why the fallout was probably so bad, or the character of the mother, what the mother has said perhaps about eating, or what their eating habits were like in the house, and all those just sort of opening up between poems and between sometimes I suppose like poems about sex or being ridiculously in love with him or being on point in the kitchen and things like that. But then there'd be like a poem about like being on like a bunk bed and like you fall
yeah,
your doll kind of thing. Like these sort of, yeah, I suppose uh, glimpses into who we are and how we're made up and the reasons we might do things, like what our
okay.
drivers
So
are.
that sounds exactly to me. That's exactly what I could see happening in the book, and that's great. But it also teleports you back to the previous collection in
Hmm.
many ways because, like, they're both autobiographical, only up to a point, like within both comments. But um, the other one hasn't got the arc. This one, you can see the arc that you
Hmm.
must have tracked when you were doing the novel. So that's very interesting. But can you talk about the differences a little bit between bringing the two books into existence? And we've heard a lot about how you got to the novel, but through the novel process. But I mean, autobiographically, the choices, the as you say, linking backwards, and then also
Hmm.
looking forward.
A very good question, and was basically what I had to write my thesis on. So,
Okay, well, we've only got a
well, it
few
sounds
more
like I'd
minutes.
have a really good answer for it. Like I don't. I got so freaking sick of
4 years
that.
and
I'm
you've
now
got
just like trauma memory box. Like I'm trying to forget most of
no,
it.
okay, but I don't mean that. Let's just go back to My Darling from the Lions for a minute. The
Mm-hmm.
debut collection, quite a lot of personal poems in that one, really all
Mm-hmm.
very personal. Also, a lot about the body
Mm-hmm.
and emotional connections to the body. And then we're doing that in it's the Rachel style, but different in the new, but much more developed. Can you say anything about the difference in in development that you've had then?
Mm. I think even though my darling, I suppose, again, is sort of emotionalist, and I keep using emotionalist maybe more than like sort of actually honest or factual or autobiographical, or even confessional. I was looking at Sharon Olds a lot
Yeah.
for the PhD, and she there's an interview with her in The Guardian from like 2008, and she is called a confessional poet, and she said she basically says I'm not. She says I call work like mine apparently personal, or in my case, apparently very
Oh,
personal. which I freaking love, the apparently personal.
Yeah.
And what I think that gave me, anyways, is a lot more permission. So even though I think it probably took sort of some risks in terms of the apparently personal. I think this time I was like, ooh, that's really cool. And I don't think it's about sort of denial, but I think maybe I sort of was able to play with the performance of self.
Yeah.
Also perhaps like the self as other, because during that time, like I was either hyper aware of myself or and it's not even or it was and or throwing myself sort of under the bus like emotionally and physically, but sort of watching yourself. That I don't, if anyone has experienced like anything vaguely similar, but you, I think everyone thinks you're stupid when you stop eating. That's something I sort of found out as well, as if like, oh, you're too stupid, so sort of. But actually, your senses become quite cat-like, and it makes you really, well, made me sort of quite sharp, and that makes you sort of notice a lot of things that perhaps you may not have noticed if you were just sort of going around like waiting for lunchtime or whatever. But it does, and I think that's where lots of people use sort of fasting in like sort of religious context, or like it makes you really sharp. This is not like a pro Anna sort of interview at all, but it does. It's sort of a byproduct of it. And like I think those three things. So playing in terms of the performance of self and like how you can dial that up. Playing with voice as well, because the first person, of which my darling was mostly written in the first person. Um, Sparrow on the Rooftop is all in the second person.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Mhm. Which is something that I felt just just worked in a way that the first didn't for this particular time and like the mood of the book, and the third felt too far away and like I was purposely trying to put distance between it. And then the first felt just way too subjective. The second was just felt like just right. And it really suited that sort of self as other thing, that the fact that I was
Mm.
both myself at that time and I absolutely wasn't. And so you could be you, the reader, it could be you, the self, feeling like sort of alien within your own body. Yeah, it had so many, it just allowed me so much. So I hope that you feel like developments.
Yeah, definitely. Really, amazing how the shifts between the books are obvious, but at the same time, the style and the voice are extremely recognizable. I love that. That's brilliant. And can I ask you to read Boxing Day now, which I think is
Mm.
potentially my favorite poem?
Really?
I think so.
Really
It's the one that I that stayed. Well, let's talk about it afterwards.
surprising. Um, let's keep seeing. Boxing Day, the non-day, wine stain. He lugs his trousers on, you steam his shirt, rancid under the pits, a deep smirch you haven't noticed on him before. He's all tears running late. I'm never late, see. This is why I like getting ready for work at my own place. He has a headache, needs ibuprofen. I'm getting the flu. Babe, it's called a hangover. This is why no one should work today. It's called retail, and some of us aren't so lucky. At the door with a tiptoe kiss, you ask, coming back later. We can watch a film or our show. Maybe, baby, I'll let you know. You stand in the middle of the living room, your deflated grotto. He's left all his presents under the tree, his card ripped open but unread. That's a lot of words, he'd said. I'll read it later. You bundle your hair up, begin to tidy, scrub, realign. You hoover the rug, watch the clock, measure your time against his work day. He'll be on his break now. He'll be sitting on the floor of the dressing room he first dressed you in, where he hides to eat his lunch in peace. He might call his mum to say happy Boxing Day, or he won't call her or you for the rest of. Alone again, you leave the bathroom door open to throw up everything you ate. A day passed, but it stays in, you see. when you usually stay so empty.
Thank you, Rachel. I mean, there's so much there, but you are the queen of the concrete. You absolutely are, and I that Christmas card is damns him for all time, and that's a lot of words. I'll read it later. That that is the turning point in a way. We leave him behind after that. There's infatuation gone on the reader's behalf anyway, because
Interesting.
that is the point at which everyone is on your side, totally bought in. Like
Oh,
whatever, however beautiful he is, whatever happened, that is the turning point where like, okay, let's leave him. Let's move forward. And can you say, but and you've done it through this card and the writing and your persona as a writer, um, being the thing that separates you. Can you say something about that? About I don't know what exactly, emotional truth or concrete imagery and emotional truth.
the card, the card is just not lie that the card didn't actually happen, and I was just like, all the time.
Oh no!
I'm obsessed with his phone. He doesn't read. I'm like, God, this is not going to work. It's just not going to work. Um, so yeah, that I won't even pretend to lie under any sort of confessional, non-confessional. Like the card was actually so the concreteness story comes from it actually being a card, which I kept for a really long time actually, just to sort of see whether there were that many words, and there was, it wasn't like a pull-out, like you didn't have to. It wasn't like a book inside it.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but I found, yeah, there's sort of a realization, and that is it sort of comes in the sort of the end of the first sort of third of the book, I'd say. And it was really difficult as well, I suppose, to sort of work out what went wrong. And also, that was another reason why as a novel, it didn't quite work because I didn't have, again, I have the power to sort of imagine, and I could have made it up. But it all felt everything that I sort of supposed for it and sort of did right towards, because I did do that. It all just felt a little fake, a little theatrical, even when I tried to bring it down. And there was nothing again that felt as like as sort of, yeah, true than what does happen. There are some relationships that sort of there's no sort of massive yeah, sort of
And I
fight
think the
at the door.
choice of Boxing Day as that
Yeah.
time in in the year where everybody's deflated and everything's deflated
Mm,
was the perfect choice for that.
thank you.
Um,
And also there is a Christmas poem. There's the like sort of eating like, well, no, there's Christmas mentioned like eating like Christmas. And so yeah, I just kind of I wanted to make a sort of a connection between the two as well, that can also be like a really loaded time if you also are someone who maybe struggles with like eating or disordered eating,
yeah,
family, any of the three.
all the things, all the things. um, talking in that about Boxing Day, Christmas Day poems, all these things. Did you write? Are you a person that writes massively and cuts it all down, or are you eking each poem out when you feel a gap that you need to fill, or can you? What's your
Hmm.
process with to get a book?
I don't write tons. I will be more like, I think this is, I'll sort of write a draft of the poem, rework and rework and rework that draft. I won't, and I'm not very good at sort of saving them in a numbered way, which I know that you should, because then you can sort of keep track of how many. I don't really do that. But I rework and rework. And then once I've got my sort of my teeth really into it, I can't really leave it alone until I feel that it's done. And then I might wait ages, like I don't write every day. I hope I try to be really honest about that. I know that I should, but I don't. Um, I feel like I read a lot and I teach quite a lot, and that sometimes I just haven't, I can't get back into the sort of writing space. So I sort of go like that. Like I'll have like sort of days, and that's why maybe some of these are called Christmas or boxing because that time gets sort of quiet because they're like holiday times or like summer, like everything goes, no one really emails you, like sort of as much, everyone's sort of on holiday. And it's really nice, and that feels like I can sort of hunker down. Um, and yeah, and then just right. And so maybe it's no mistake that some of them do sort of concentrate on those particular times. But I'm a sort of don't write, don't write, don't write. Write in a really sort of write not lots, but in a really concentrated way.
Yeah.
Wait, wait, wait. Next one, next one, next one. So it does, yeah, it takes a while. There's a better process, absolutely, guys. You probably have a much better process. But that's mine.
We, we all make it up as we go along, I think. And Mary's got put an interesting question. Let me just find it in the chat. Mary Kirk, have you written that relationship out of your life, or have you rewritten your life around the failed relationship?
Very good question, Mary. Both, I think. Both.
Hmm. Simultaneously, whilst writing in front of the camera.
I
She's
think
done.
so because the minute it's on camera, it's not them anymore. Like it's not
Yeah,
really them. And because it's not a
yeah.
camera, it's writing, there's still but even I suppose, I don't know, I don't do film or photography, but like I suppose even when someone's sort of captured, there's still a decision. There's a probably there is an editorial decision that sort of takes place in which you or a certain pose or so someone is depicted in the way that you mean for them to be depicted, and sometimes you might even as the sort of the director or the poet in this case, like you maybe I didn't know that I was sort of creating away from him, but even in trying to get to his essence, I that is still it's it's not him. I don't know if he would recognize himself in this book, I don't know if he would.
I bet he does because he said he wouldn't come to the
He
launch.
wouldn't come to the launch.
Yeah, so maybe he does.
Not because he's lazy, not because he read it. I still don't think he's read it. Not at all.
I know, I know I said I wouldn't ask you to read this one, but I think you've prepared it, and I think now's a good time. If would you mind reading Say What?
Mm. Say what I L you, say what I really do, say it like you know what we're really getting into. Say you're scared, scared, who me? Say stay, please don't leave, but also go, lol, I need to breathe. Neither of you wants to be the first to say, here's my gauntlet, here's my jugular. So what is there here, really?
Bam. That's that's everything, isn't it, about that? Can I ask you? I know you mentioned. I wanted to ask you about influences, and you mentioned Sharon Olds and
Mhm.
um, Saint Sharon, really, for
Yeah.
permission. Um, but can I ask you about Saliba Hill? Because and there's Tracy Emin, which people will see
Mm.
clearly in the. You can see the influence of Tracy in the
Mm.
book when you get it, but Salima Hill was not so clear to me. So there's humour, there's that backhanded humour in the book that's very good, and that's Salima, but and a slight surreal quality to the humour. But can you, what drew you? I don't necessarily think there's a
Yeah.
generational difference for a start.
I think the generational difference is most of my like influences. I suppose not Warsaw and Shiro is probably with like exactly the same age, but yeah, all the others. But Salima, I think, and I found it really interesting when you were like Salima. And I was like, Tamsin is smart. And I had to think about that. Because of the original project as well, sort of how she writes fathers, but then also if I think down the line, like how she writes men is really
Yeah,
interesting. So I don't because she's as collections sort of coming out of her ears and like sort of every 6 months, but a sort of recent one that sort of came out in 2021 when this was all sort of happened was Men Who Feed Pigeons.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, there's some nods, which I found. Well, it's not maybe one of my favorite collections of hers, but it's so interesting the way in which she writes this sort of object of affection, who sounds like an absolute like wanker as well, but like she's still in love with him. Like, and she so I think that she's a massive influence in that way. Like you kind of know, like it's not. Again, it's not a sort of a stupidity. You're kind of fully aware, but then you're still sort of drawn to them, which I suppose is a stupidity. But you know that you're being stupid and still you do, or you will allow yourself to be stupid for that person with a sort of uh, yeah, there's something really deliberate about that. And maybe in a way also quite sort of self-abusive, maybe. She
It's
writes
some
them
human
really well.
condition.
She writes men really well and not, not sort of brilliant men either. Also, the way in which she writes loneliness, I
Yeah.
love and admire. Um, she writes it sort of not as a sort of this black hole, this dark hole that's real sort of a cliche or the like the black dog sort of walking past. She often uses like white as a color as well, and the way she writes shame as well. Shame has a lot to do with this book. I've kind of always been sort of a bit preoccupied with writing or not wanting to write about shame, but exploring it as a sort of feeling and a concept. But she writes it well. There's a quote by Salima here where she's like, "Shame is a white balloon moving from room to dusty room." And I was like, "Of course it is."
Yeah.
Like as soon as
Concrete.
it is concrete, she's queen of concrete. Absolutely not me. Salima Hill is. She really is.
So I think I would like to hear you read a little bit more, but the next poem, if you could read what else, would you mind reading that next? Because that fits into what you're saying about writing about loneliness, and that would be great. So we kind of got past the relationship a little bit at this point. Yeah,
Yeah, he's gone. He's
we're on
way gone.
the next wave.
What else is there to do of an evening when all winter they were taken up with his calls, the sofa parties, champagne, tiny plates, nuts and olives brimming, how he fucked you inside and out? You're drinking to lean against the wall of your life, to watch it from a cool distance. How else to get back to that gorgeous farawayness of being here and not?
Wow. Reach that image again of the person inside and also the observer simultaneously, and then the alcohol amplifying that is so recognizable and so heartrendingly tricky and circular. Um,
Mhm.
yes, and then so you've gone from the concrete with the olives and things, and then you've gone not concrete inside your head and outside your head. And I just can't explain how you've done that telescoping thing. If that wasn't your poem, if you got given that as a teacher, what would you be looking at with that?
Ah, good question. I would be so the concreteness would probably happen, but it's not in a very. But the images are the champagne, the tiny plates, the nuts and the olives. The fucking you inside out is kind of neither here nor there, but it does get to, I suppose, yeah, an inside and outness. Like, what does that actually mean then? Like, what is it inside and out? So there's a certain uh I suppose not even like it goes sort of beyond the sex. It's sort of like what is that to be turned inside out?
Yeah,
A drinking to lean against the wall of your life to watch it from a cool distance. I'd probably concentrate if it was in a workshop like there in a way, like is so I think in a way, well, I suppose in a way it's concrete because if you are leaning against a wall
yeah,
and life is a wall and you can sort of see yourself doing whatever. Or actually, no, you're right, because life is both happening and being watched, but also not in the wall.
brilliant.
Well, I don't. Well, I
Mary
I
Mulholland,
really feel.
Mary Mulholland has put in the chat that gorgeous far awayness of being here and not.
Which you can
You know, that,
only really get to, I feel, when you're drunk or in love, you know?
yeah, yeah. And you're not in your right mind.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Quite
Exactly.
true. Can we have, I'm worried we're going to run out of time and we've got two more
Sorry.
beautiful poems that I want to talk about. So, can we have the Worry People 2? You just better summarize about Worry People 1, I think.
Worry people. So, little orange people that you, the character in the book, was given as a child. They have little orange faces and they have turquoise dresses and they are there to take away your worries. I used to wet the bed a lot, so my dad would buy me these worry people as if that would sort it out. It didn't sort it out. So then the worry people too later on get sort of reimagined like this. The worry people too. You drank, you puked, you pissed a sofa, you drank and drank again. And when your head swam, the worry people came, waving from their tiny boats with rainbow sails no bigger than a cornflake. But some in yachts now. Some had purchased top of the range yachts from years of being invested in the bank of your sadness. It was a great market. Business was booming, all their mortgages low or paid off. It's the 20s again, some of the elders said to their children, or the early 80s, the grown up children reminisced back. It was all pinstripe and power meetings on the island now. Suits with shoulder pads so buoyant they could double as armbands if disaster struck, which it often did with you. Help, help, low on the wind. They could just about hear you over the tintabulum of champagne flutes clinking on rooftops. Sunday evenings are the worst for you, but the most lucrative workday for them. The worry people listen closer, their tiny orange ears to the wind. It's her again. They rolled their eyes, set their stems down on silver trays. Some didn't even change out of their tuxes, their pearls. Dexterously, they piled into their fine boats. Here they are, dots on the horizon of your eyelids, so far you can't tell whether they're sailing toward or.
So this, yeah, I mean, it's actually twice as long as a lot of the other poems,
Mm.
and such imaginative territory that you've gone into there, which is about the self, with the worry and everything. But then you've gone, maybe this is a Salima poem. What do you think?
Ah, yeah, I think so. There were probably a few more like that that didn't quite make it into the book because the I didn't have something as perhaps concrete as the worry people to sort of build on. There were a lot more sort of dream sequence poems.
Uh,
Because also like your sleep gets affected in lots of for kind of for different reasons. If you're, but yeah, I don't know. Anyone who's had like really bad depression, you either can't sleep or you sleep for like freaking days, and sometimes you don't dream, and then sometimes the dreams are like really really strange. And I mean, everyone will experience it differently. But I would have dream a lot. So there was a whole dream sequence as well that was going to go into the action, but they weren't building on like enough. Dream is really hard to build. It's like what's
yeah.
the building on the sand, the sort of the biblical whatever, but it felt like I was building on sand. So even yeah, so they didn't necessarily work. But I thought
I mean,
go on, Tamsin. Go on.
I was going to say this one with the characters feeding on your sorrow, the imaginative leaps, technical leaps, the storytelling, the comprehensive world building that's in here, and the characterization of all the little people. I mean, everything about it in miniature, so perfectly formed. It is different from the other ones, isn't it?
I think so, but only because I was just going to say, like, I've been thinking about those little people a lot, like maybe my whole life, like I do. I've been thinking of And it was only when I wrote this I realized that I had been thinking about them. As a kid, I'd think about their little world and their lives and whether they actually wanted to take away my worries and why that had to be their job and whether they wanted to get on with other things. Anyway, there could be it could be called The Worry People, actually, this collection. And they just were my little one.
That's good. That would be interesting. And they're not those little Yoruba storytelling figures that are carved out of wood, are they?
No, they're like
Or they're the South American
yeah.
ones. They're the
Uh-huh.
South.
I've
Yeah.
not heard of the Yoruba dolls carved of wood.
Oh,
What
yeah.
are they
They
called?
have them. They're a little bit like in Egyptian graves, the Shabti figures that did the work. They're sort of little miniature people, and when I lived in Nigeria, the Yoruba depictions of village life and that they weren't really toys, but my friends all had them.
Hmm.
They have orange heads, which is to do with the wood that they're carved from. So that's why I thought it might be that.
What were their roles, Tamsin? Like, what were they
All
supposed to?
different ones. I'll tell you about it. I'll write to you about it. But they weren't particularly worry people, but they were depiction 3D depictions of village life or activities. You might have fishermen and a boat and people fishing. They did biblical scenes, they did all different things. And it
Hmm.
just reminded me very much of that.
Dolls are really important, and they can also tell us about like ourselves. Like we learn a lot even when we're younger, like through dolls. Like there's another doll in the book, Shani, with
Yeah.
pierce her ears and stuff, but also turning the self into because it felt like I was sort of walking around with myself a lot. Sort of I was sort of maneuvering the self or into a certain body or a body type or an ideal. I think dolls are really important in this book, actually.
So do I. Do you want to read Shani quickly then?
Very
We
quickly.
didn't prep that one, but maybe
I was obsessed
better.
with dolls in the first book as well.
Yeah.
Like section on dolls. Just can't leave things alone, basically. Shani, you weren't interested in being a mother till you were a mother to Shani. There you were, legs uncrossed, wider than unladylike, wider than your dad's around, giving birth on your top bunk. Shani, a ringleted blonde, already dressed in pink, but she had steel. You saw it in her baby blues. You stripped her, sewed and shoved her fists into a tartan dress, shaved her head, pierced her ears with pins and her nose, eyebrows, cheeks, then her hands and feet. Between the rolls of her legs, the pleats of chub, her belly was made of the softest stuff. Some nights when you jigged her to sleep after a feed, the pins would prick your puppy fat chest, so you slapped her. Bad girl, how could you do this to me? Her mouth so tiny, so pursed, she had to whisper, her only register. You held her to your ear, just a low whoosh, like when you try to listen to a shell or a beautiful man. But you don't know this yet. She ate like you, everything your mother, her grandmother gave her, which was too much of everything. Turkey slice sandwiches so thick we had to suck them back down from the vaults of our mouths, and the French bread so buttered we made knives of our fingers, scraped and smooshed it into the daisy carpet. We didn't complain, but we blinked at each other. We recognized our ruin. That poor doll, your mother said, if only she could speak, she'd cry out for mercy. Yes, mother, my baby girl, my pierced angel. She'd cry out for mercy.
Well, thank you. Beautiful. We have thanks, Rachel. I have the last poem that I'm saving, the last poem in the book. That's, I wanted to talk about that, but we've had a question about from Mary Mulholland about has doing a PhD benefited your poetry? Did it? I mean, spending time with your work and a lot of focus on it obviously is going to do good work, but let's talk about how much has the PhD made you a better poet?
Really good question. I think because you have to think about your work in a really incisive and technical way. And not only that, you have to justify it. You have to sort of fight for every decision that you make. Like, even though, and I'm not very good at that. I'm sort of just a bit like, okay, it happened, or I figure lots of things out, but not consciously. But you have to be very conscious and very deliberate. And even if you're not, then you have to do the sort of reverse engineering. But
Yeah,
in that reverse engineering, sort of, yeah, the back pedal of like, shit, why did I do that actually? Can be really interesting. And you just find out even more, and it will deepen all the subjects that we might be obsessed with anyway. And then just, it's like I felt like I was just working at a certain level in the soil sort of thing. And then once you do a little bit more research, there was just this whole other layer, and then a little bit more research or a little bit more. And in conversation, you're in conversation with and if you have a good supervisor, like that's like us having a mentor, but for 3 years or four, actually, 3 to 4 years, you have sort of monthly back and forth meetings about your work, like what privilege. It's kind of, it's ridiculous. So yeah, the work is only going to deepen, it's only going to develop, it's only going to get better. um and I think you'll understand not only your own work, but yourself as a person as well. There's that sort of joke that you'll go mad like 3 times when you're doing PhD, but it's probably because there's a total breakdown also of the self in that sort of investigation. Because the decisions we make creatively might also give a good clue to how we work as a person, you know?
interesting. That is so interesting. And of course, Sarah Howe, what a amazing editor. But
Oh.
you have given a tremendous amount to the poetry community in your time. I know you have, from Octavia to all your teaching. Um, but you've also found some key people, haven't you, on your way? So I know obviously Caroline Bird and Sarah, how about, are there others? And how do you find your way? How should we, if you had some advice, find our way to those key people that can
There are
support
so
you, like
many.
emotionally and the work?
There are so many, and if I am kind or in any way generous when I'm teaching, it's only because I have been taught that and I'm shown that like all the time. Like everyone's kindness and generosity to me is just something else. Tamsin, yours as well to me. Like this is a kindness you invite in me. Like so many people. I think also the launches and when this book came out and just before I was really scared, and but just the love that I got. Like I've kind of only just today, it's been like 3 weeks ago or like sort of yesterday, but just sort of come out of it, like, because I was just so overwhelmed by how kind and how beautiful. Like, we have something so gorgeous here, like within the poetry community, like so special. Um, yeah, it's ridiculously overwhelming. I don't there, yeah, of course, there's a little bit of bitch, and it's like, but after a while, it's just family. Like just people just sort of, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's crazy uncle, whatever, just always gonna bitch in the corner of the prizes or whatever. But I just have so much love for everyone at the moment. And there will be like, but we know they're dickheads, and they'll just, but that's fine. I also have a lot of love for them. It's like, okay, bitch in the corner then, and just yeah, give
Well,
weirdo
that's
a
I
gift.
love that attitude, and
Yeah, I just.
we should hold on to that. Now we are reaching the end, Rach, and you have to read that last poem for us. This is just amazing. This poem, in so many ways, it's operating on at least three, and I think possibly five levels. And you have to buy the book so that you can work that all out. Um,
So you can
Take
tell
it
me
away, Rachel.
how it sounds in. So there you go. Just read it. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one's for you. Let's go.
This one's for you. You edited the first love poem he wrote you before he'd even sent it. He'd only told you about it, said that he was penning something. You winced, corrected all the punctuation and grammar. He doesn't like commas much. You sieved it for cliches and abstractions. converted the ethereal to concrete, all the sky into grit. When it was finished as it was ever going to be, and a lot shorter than anticipated, said, "Here, baby, here it is. This one's for you."
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much to the
Yeah.
brilliant Rachel Long for coming along to the Red Doors tonight. Links in the chat for her book, her website. She's pretty much everywhere. She's easy to find if you ever feel like
just looking after dogs. That's what I am doing.
I had questions about you moving to Margate with the dogs, but
no, but I talked too much about
time.
it. Yeah, I'm sorry. It didn't change the work, but it did make me a lot happier. So maybe the next book will be happy. It's a short answer to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just while people are leaving and we're coming to the end, what's next?
Well, maybe the happier book.
The happier book.
About dogs.
The happy relationship.
Yeah,
happy book.
No, I don't know
Happy.
I know, can you imagine? Then it bombs. It's like we like the sad ones.
Yeah, the rubbish poetry comes out of happiness, doesn't it? Well, not well, quite often anyway.
I don't know. I knew this from the time before. When I have a book out, I have to wait for it to come out and get off me and go out, and then I can think about what I want to do next. Like I really admire people that can write at the same time that you can do that, which is I just don't. So I genuinely don't know. I just have to wait.